Hey, this is Russ Payton with Roleplaying Public Radio. This is RPPR episode 121, Con-SCAR-acy, about conspiracies and horror. This episode is sponsored by both Mystical Throne Entertainment and Arc Dream. Mystical Throne Entertainment, publisher of Shadowed Earth and the Entropic Gaming System. Check out our selection of licensed materials for Savage Worlds, Legend, Colonial Gothic, and Dark Streets, along with our titles from development studio Broken Ruler Games. You'll find a variety of settings covering dark fantasy, historical fantasy, horror, Greek mythology, modern action, and sci-fi. To find out more, visit mysticalthrone-ent.com. Mystical Throne Entertainment, bringing new worlds to your tabletop. This month, we also have a special coupon code for RPPR listeners. The code is RPPR October, all one word. By using this code, you can get the Entropic Gaming System Core Rulebook PDF for only $1, normally $5, at the web store. I'll put a link in the show notes so you can check it out. The Entropic Game System is an open game license. It looks very rules light, open multi-system genre, or multi-genre system, so looks very interesting. Anyways, and also this episode is, of course, sponsored by Arc Dream during this month because we're helping them out with the Delta Green Kickstarter, and that's why we're doing this episode about conspiracies and horror. So
now that we expect that Kickstarter to succeed.
Yeah. Well, it is succeeding right now, but we're not quite at the time of this recording to Impossible Landscapes, which is the big stretch goal, at least for me personally, because, you know, that's the Carcosa campaign.
Hey, my stretch goal, Matt.
Your stretch goal? Yes. Caleb had a stretch goal. It is...
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
Don't even mention it.
It's fine.
I didn't have time, Caleb.
It's not set in Carcosa, so it doesn't even matter.
Oh, my God.
Well, Caleb, that was
Jesus.
foolish.
Are you just
To get noticed by Ross, it has to be there.
It's like you're Catholic all of a sudden, you know. No, it's fine. I'll just sit here in the dark. Don't change the light bulb.
Oh, No, visit me or not, I could just sit here and die.
But yes, Lover in the Ice is being converted to Delta Green, so you'll actually have stats for the thing in there, and you can actually mention the green box and all this other good stuff. But yes, so it's going upwards and onwards. Hopefully, it'll sail past the Impossible Landscapes. There's a lot of other stretch goals after that. Also looking forward to like Control Group. I think that's at 220K. That's a 5 scenarios designed to teach people Delta Green system, and it starts with them being astronauts in space, you know, trying to fix a satellite put there by Majestic 12. And then bad things happen. And that's written by Greg
Why is
Stolzen.
it nothing good ever happens?
Well, that would be.
It's like, yeah, we were on this mission for Delta Green, and we met the woman of our dreams.
Yeah,
settled down. We're happy.
Although I do feel that if we get to run this one, we need to specifically play it as Delta Green in space.
Well, it is the Majestic 12, like your Majestic 12 astronauts doing something, or maybe you're not even. I haven't read it yet. It was written by Greg Stolzen.
Like, well, we're astronauts, but do we know of the conspiracy?
They did just release also the Afghanistan adventure, which was designed to playtest the combat rules, and after reading through it, I can see why. Yeah. Especially those kill damage rules and kill damage weapons. So, have you taken a look at it too, Caleb?
Yeah, Caligata is like the first 30 minutes of Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
But hotter.
Yeah. Everyone wants to kill your character. So, yeah, it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. So, that's why we were doing this episode, talking about conspiracies and how they can be used for gaming, especially horror games. Because a lot of times, I think the World of Darkness left a lot of bad taste in everyone's mouth when it came to conspiracies, in that it made them too powerful, too omnipotent, too omniscient. And so it kind of, and also there's also conspiracy theorists who kind of believe the same thing, to where it's like, well, if I put a conspiracy in my game, then, you know, my players have no chance because everyone's going to be on it.
But if it wasn't a perfect conspiracy, we'd have some evidence.
Right, exactly.
All right, World of Darkness wasn't a conspiracy. They misused the term, because if everyone in the world is in on the conspiracy and one of 5 people, who also happen to be like the only 5 human people left on the planet that aren't some wackety schmackety do universal monster, you're not like being preyed on by a conspiracy. You're insane. You live in a different reality. Your reality is the crazy one.
Right.
And the conspiracy reality is like everyone's laughing at you.
So basically it just turns into I am legend, except for the fact it's just for following Jim's everyday life while everybody giggles at him.
Mortal, the nearly extinct.
Yeah. Yeah, well, actually, about 3rd edition World of Darkness is more superheroes with supernatural powers.
Yeah. So that's kind of the problem. But I think Conspiracies, if done right, can add a lot to a game. I mean, there's literally one game built all around that. Of course, Night's Black Agents, where they have the Conspiramid and Tribes of Tokyo. That entire campaign was about unraveling one conspiracy, but that was a very limited and local conspiracy. It was focused in Tokyo. It only involved a few dozen people at most, and no one knew everything except for the guy at the top, who was the big bad, and took the entire campaign to get to him and take that guy out.
It only resolved far, far in the future. So, one way it
and
resolved,
totally wasn't Mythos.
Spoilers, yeah.
How long has that game been out now?
So, not everybody listens. Not everyone is Crawlkill or Tadonori in terms of listening to this. So, and future listeners, of course. But anyways, so what makes a good conspiracy? I mean, I think the first thing is to look at real conspiracies, really horrific ones in real life. And there have been a lot of them, but we tend to find out about them because conspiracies are imperfect, run by flawed people with agendas that are kind of self-destructive in a lot of ways. So just to give you some ideas, I wrote just a few of them down off a list of cracked real conspiracies that are fucked up. Let's see, there's the Dreyfus Affair, which was basically a conspiracy by the French military to blackball Jewish officers or get them kicked out of the military and to blame them for all kinds of crimes. Let's see, the Mafia is a conspiracy. It is literally a conspiracy. Pretty much every other criminal syndicate is like that too. So, MK Ultra, the CIA's mind control experiments in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, using LSD and other things, see if they can mind control people. And these, let's see, then the Church Committee.
The answer was no, but they could make them real crazy.
Yeah. They're actually out in Delta Green stories that basically are like during the MK Ultra years, and it's like, hey, there's literally ones like, let's do MK Ultra but with the Black Lotus flower. Where'd you get that? Someplace called Ling. It's in China. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, or like Teapot Dome.
Yeah.
During the Grant administration, where they basically tried to sell the Navy's oil reserves to private interests.
Right. And there are a lot of financial crooked embezzling schemes to make money. But when we're doing horror, you really want to look for the ones with the body count. You know, MK Ultra ruined a lot of lives. There are some messed up people. Let's see, Operation Gladio is another big one. That's when, after World War II, the West NATO recruited a lot of former Nazis to, make sure Europe didn't go commie, by... Well, we would call it terrorism today, but, it was terrorism. So
yeah, the interesting mark of we teamed up with the communists to defeat you. Now we're going to use those
Air
skills.
America.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's not, Air America. Do you want to...
That's the CIA drug smuggling in Vietnam using secret airstrips and private contractor pilots.
And there's several conspiracies of the CIA smuggling drugs, to pay the Iran for the Iran-Contra affair. There was one in the 80s for Arkansas, selling cocaine in Arkansas.
Oh yeah, I remember reading the stories about those. So
and the CIA really likes its drug smuggling. So
how else can you? That's the best way to pay for secret wars you can't put on the books.
Fair, yeah, true.
Can't collate what snored up.
Yeah, and then of course the Tunguski syphilis experiments, where African Americans were injected with syphilis to find out what would happen, and of course lied to them about it. So if you want horror, it's right there. Oh yeah, this injection is fine.
CIA can't be definitively linked to most of it, but they're also probably in charge of the crack epidemic.
Right. I mean, they were. A lot of this was
not to sound crazy, but maybe they weren't. But, then there's that other drug smuggling scheme, and that other drug smuggling scheme, and that other drug smuggling scheme.
Oh, and the one
that other drug smuggling scheme.
Wait. You totally forgot about that one drug smuggling.
Oh, yeah, that one.
In 69. Gosh, 69. What a year.
And, of course, there's the big political ones, Watergate, et cetera, and various assassination schemes.
Yeah, someone actually said Watergate is actually the reason why most conspiracies aren't perfect.
Right.
Because the government actually has a lot of idiots in it.
Well, I think any organization has a lot of idiots in it.
Well, another thing is that I think when you're talking about real world conspiracies is assuming nefarious intent, or at least singular nefarious intent. Like there's some puppet master or there's some group at the top, whereas a lot of conspiracies are just the result of systematic incentives driving people towards a systematic form of secrecy and stuff like that. So, like you've got conspiracy with people at the head. So you have the DeBeers Diamond corporations, forcing a false scarcity of diamonds for years until diamonds have an established intrinsic value that they don't actually carry in the real world, and all the resulting like wars and
blood
puppet
diamonds.
dictatorships and blood diamonds and stuff. The result of that. So that is something with somebody at the helm. But then you look at stuff like NPR, This American Life just did a couple of episodes about redlining or redballing, which was a systematic method of ghettoizing American cities against African Americans. The red line would be the line past which you would not show an African American couple a house.
Right. Or get them alone.
Yeah. And at that point, there is no like evil white guy committee all getting together in the secret evil white guy lounge.
Also known as the Country Club.
Yes. Yeah. To plan that, it's not explicit and there is no leadership in that. But that is, if nothing but a conspiracy, it's just a combination of, racism, obviously, and financial incentive that leads to a systematic thing that is a conspiracy by any, definition behaviorally and objectively, but it doesn't have like someone, tinting their fingers together in a rolly chair behind it.
Well, I mean that's a great point, and I think it sort of emphasizes the larger point. What I want to make is that conspiracies are not formed. They do not spring from conspiracy Zeus's head, fully formed. They existed before, like every member of that conspiracy existed before the conspiracy. They had real lives, and then they found themselves in circumstances where they led to a conspiracy. So I think, especially like the World of Darkness, is really bad about this, and in that they created every NPC and everything about that conspiracy as part of a puzzle that everything fit perfectly within it to create this, these vampires ruling the city or whatever. Everything works together. Everything is balanced against each other. It's a perfect conspiracy mechanism, and that's not how it works in real life. All these businessmen or CIA agents or drug dealers or whoever, they didn't were born specifically to do this conspiracy. They didn't train all their life to do this. They just oh shit, we should sell drugs to these people so we can finance this illegal war, or let's hire these Nazis to go fight, beat up leftists and kill leftists in continental Europe, and so and they bring their own flaws and imperfections into the conspiracy, their own biases.
Yeah. And kind of speaking of World of Darkness, that was also one of the bigger flaws of it too, in comparison to real world conspiracies, is that it cast its net so wide and with so many characters that it would literally just collapse under its own weight, because I know the whole premise was the secret war that humanity couldn't see.
Right.
But God, by the end, if you counted all its NPCs, you're right. There's only the one human Phil left at the end of it.
Right.
And how are you hiding it from him?
Yeah, we thought I believe they thought they had found a female of the just regular human species, and they were hoping to mate them together. But she turned out to be a Rokia kinfolk ghoul.
That's a thing.
Which could be a conspiracy in and of itself. But yeah,
I think I understood 3 words in that sentence.
But overall,
don't explain it. Don't explain it.
But overall, you're right. It was
you
within a lot of the cases.
No, he doesn't.
When it came to more or less, it was kind of the smaller, concise cells that were that may have had the connections to the other ones to form the larger idea, but were only set to their specific areas.
Right.
Well, another thing to note about is that most conspiracies aren't secret, and I don't mean that they're just incompetent. I mean that you literally know they exist. You literally know what you're doing. You don't give enough of a shit to do something about it.
Right.
So, for instance, FIFA still exists. FIFA still does everything FIFA does.
Right.
FIFA, no one wants it because, man, soccer.
Yeah.
Football!
And they're
football!
still building that Doom stadium.
Everyone knows that if your city hosts the Olympics, you have been struck by an economic Hiroshima.
And not in the good way.
You can pretty much just say goodbye to all ideas of solvency or surplus for the remainder of your life, and probably the remainder of your life of your children. You will have a uptick in ruin porn photography.
Wait,
is this?
That's only good for you,
for
Ross.
the Olympics?
Yeah, for any town the Olympics are going to be put in. Yeah, it's gonna come, it's gonna go, and it's gonna take all the money you had with it.
And if it's the World Cup, God help you.
But no, people protest, people do it, but you know what? You don't have political power, and so you don't get to do a shit about it. Right. The guy who upped the AIDS drug, that is literally the plot of multiple spy movies of pharma companies trying to take control of vital drugs so they can up the price and save people. He's literally killing people, but that guy's a dick. Let's all talk about how much of a dick he is.
Well, he actually did back down on that.
Okay, yeah, because he was a dick. No one did in the movies and dragged him in the street and shot him.
All right.
That's what I'm saying. A conspiracy doesn't have to be something that people instantly start the revolution. Yeah. It's not Soylent Green is people. If you told everyone Soylent Green is people, they'd probably be like, "Oh man, you really should have told me that." And then they continue eating Soylent Green.
I don't want to come to waste,
Yeah, exactly. So
I'll stop after this guy.
Complacency or just the sheer fact that you weigh the costs and you weigh the rewards of fighting the conspiracy, and the conspiracy doesn't take as much away from you as it would if you fought it.
Right.
Talk about the mafia.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. A conspiracy doesn't have to be secret.
Right.
It can still be oh yeah, no, it's horrible and dystopian.
But also, when most people think of a conspiracy, they're not thinking of a real one. They're thinking of 9/11 was an inside job, or Kennedy was killed by everyone.
A magic bullet by Castro.
The fake moon landing.
Yeah,
conspiracy theorists.
Well, yeah, and so we might also define a conspiracy as something that is like that, but necessarily not found out. So maybe the conspiracy is defined by its secrecy. If you want to talk about that, but if we want to talk about the moon landing and other more intense conspiracy theories, that's when I will get all academic and dry.
But the whole thing is to create a conspiracy that's interesting in a game, and so you have to look at start with the real world, and each of these real world conspiracies had a specific goal, and whether they were formed at the top, say Operation Gladio, or any number of assassination conspiracies, which the goal was kill that dude, that they had the goal. It was a specific goal, and then if the goal's perpetuating, they kept doing it until they got caught, or they failed and they got caught, or they succeeded and they split up. Yeah, they disbanded.
All done.
Yeah. So thinking about your game, what kind of conspiracy would be interesting in your game? It depends, obviously, what type of game you're running. Let's say modern investigative horror, which is a staple now. Not necessarily Delta Green, although that would definitely work.
Night Black Agents.
Night Black Agents, Esoterrorists, the New World of Darkness, or just a generic, like a GURPS game or something like that. So any number of systems out there would work for that. So what would be, and obviously the conspiracy is just a tool to reinforce what you want to do in the game. And so it's a horror game, so you want a horrific conspiracy. So for example, we could look at reality again, the Tunguski syphilis experiment. That's the most horrific out of all the ones I think of right now, being infected secretly with a debilitating and deadly disease like that. That's that's very intense, very bad. So we could work off of that. So some sort of body horror, some sort of medical, as an example. Yeah.
Oh no, absolutely. If you're looking at taking the Delta Green stance, that you have a current team, if we're going by the modern stance, wandering into an old test site where they did experiments, maybe injecting them with pieces of pieces of a Shoggoth, and then hey, guess what? You just came across hybrids. So.
Okay, yeah. So we have a conspiracy to. Why don't we? It could be a secret. Then the conspiracy could be about covering it up.
Yeah,
these Shoggoth hybrids. They're really hard to kill. Let's just keep them drugged and put away in a sanitarium or
one of them got out and hey, he's starting to talk. Holy crap!
Yeah, exactly. And it's very muddled. So,
and Barbara Walters is going to do an interview with him.
Right, exactly. And, when he has eyes growing up his forearm, that's kind of as the agents, you have to figure out who did this and why and how to stop them. So in this case, the conspiracy would be probably the pharmaceutical company that did it, plus whatever suppliers gave them the Shoggoth in the first place. And now they're just trying, and their motivation is to cover their asses. So their kind of actions they would do would be to kill all the patients, burn all the documents, and then just pretend it never happened. So that would be the kind of adventures you would be doing. So that's one example of doing it. It's a very real. So as going on in a more general way, like what are conspiracies about? Like sometimes it's about secrecy, sometimes it's not. But I think there's always that element of uncertainty, of ambiguity, of duality, hypocrisy. Like FIFA, they say they're honest. They
not for profit.
Yeah, they're a non-for-profit, and they investigated themselves. They found they weren't corrupt. So,
when everybody else says, "Hey, look at that gigantic Doom Stadium you're building and the dead bodies that are littering it."
But that's again, if you were investigating an open conspiracy like that, an open secret, how do you fight that? If they do that, in that case, how do you fight a massive institution that just says "fuck you"?
And where most people don't want to hear it,
right? And most people,
the NFL,
yeah.
Oh, it turns out we are killing people with concussions. Well, nobody gives a shit. See you next Sunday. That kind of stuff. I approach it from the other direction, so I think it's a good way to approach it if you're like, I want a creepy Shoggoth, man. How do I do that? And then you end up land on pharmacy and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I'm a dweeb, though, so I really like Frederick Jameson's idea of totality as conspiracy. So Jameson has this very long, very dense academic paper called Totality as Conspiracy. And basic argument is that the postmodern condition, meaning the world as it exists today, or more importantly, the world as it always existed, but the world as we've come to understand it today with massive media culture, cannot be summed up in any narrative. Yeah. It is too complex, it is too wide, it is too huge. So your Christian narrative's out the window, the narrative of your gender's gone, the narrative of your politics and your nationalism, well, we saw how that worked. And so all of those things are thrown out the window. You cannot conceive realistically of the world in any single way. And the thought of that, and the thought that you can't hold those mindsets simultaneously, because if you could, it would still be one mindset.
Right.
The fact that you are always missing something, he says, is kind of terrifying. So his idea of conspiracy is that conspiracy is a way of comforting yourself. It's a symbolic resolution, because the reason you don't understand the way the world works is because it does work one way, but they just don't want you to know that way. So it's actively trying to hide the conception of the world from you. So it's not that everything is so massive and complex that it's beyond my human understanding. It's not this dwarfing instance of cosmic terror. It is this, I'm in the Matrix, and I'm the one in the Matrix. How about that? I got superpowers out. It's very much, your conspiracy is kind of comforting, even if it's horrific and dystopian in the game, because it says something about the world. So for me, I like to approach it from that direction. I like to say, well, what's the mindset I have about how the world works now, and how is my conspiracy going to reflect that? So the current Delta Green thing we're doing, the Teeth of God, I went from the idea that conspiracies are pretty easy to spot, but they're really hard to care about, especially when you have other people in your life, and they're really hard to maintain your attention on, especially when other things are going on in your life. So the idea that evil is always there, and it is always gnawing at the door, and the banality of evil is the fact that things get lost in the shuffle and get worse when they are lost in that shuffle. So that's kind of what I'm going for on that kind of thing. So, but I'm weird. But I mean, that's one way if you don't want to be if you want to freshen things up, you can approach it from the other direction as well.
Right.
So I think it's a great idea of I want Shoggoth, man. How do I get him in there?
Yeah.
Okay, pharmacies.
Right.
But I also think that's how some bad conspiracies are made too, because then it's the corporations. The corporations.
Oh,
and in this campaign, it's the corporations. Because I think you just want...
Yeah.
I think you just want, people to, I think you just want, you just want an excuse for your cool monster. Whereas I think if you attacked it from the other direction, it's what I want to say about the world,
Right.
and then, okay, that thing I want to say about the world hides the cool monster. That's another way to do it.
Yeah, and then it creates that symbol that you kind of work off of and enrich the story versus... Because, exactly what you're talking about, that so many pieces of media or movies have just had the evil corporation that's evil for evil's sake.
Yeah,
I mean, umbrella.
Right.
Yeah.
Our profits go up when we destroy all human life?
Yeah, or how many...
Including our own?
Yeah, or how many...
Well, I mean, the other thing is conspiracies, I think, in a game at least, have to be imperfect. So they have to be the flawed. So in the Shoggoth Man case, they thought it would do wonders. And then, oops, looks like...
Yeah, it was a super soldier. It could
up.
create super soldiers or it could cure cancer, and it made a lot of cancer.
I mean, I can see... it's interesting. The totality conspiracy is actually kind of a little bit like the world of darkness. Antediluvians did it. Ancient wizards did it, or really powerful demons did it, basically.
Well, I mean, it's a comforting worldview. And here's the thing, your game can't be about everything or it's going to be terrible.
Right. Oh, yeah, definitely.
So in a Delta Green game, my game's not about everything, because Delta Green games are nihilistic and bleak and serious.
Yeah.
And so Fraggle Rock exists in the Delta Green universe, but we're not going to talk about it.
Right.
And that's the thing that Jameson's arguing is like, Fraggle Rock and, whatever horrific thing existing at the same time, they both exist simultaneously, and they don't do anything to negate each other. So that's the way the world really works. It's this endless expanse that you cannot hold in your tiny human head. So by making it bleak, by making it nihilistic, by making it, eldritch, there is still an element of escapism, is it? Because at least it's small enough for you to look at. It's not so big that you're incapable of holding it in your eye. So there is some element of, symbolic resolution or wish fulfillment in that, even though, Cthulhu's going to eat us all. And it's kind of like what we talked about in Game Designers Workshop, is that like, in the lack of hope that is in some ways liberating, then you at least get to be the existential hero instead of the guy who goes to work unsure whether it means anything or not, which nobody really wants to play. You want to play the guy who's decided whether it means something or not, either way, because deciding one way or not, that's at least certainty. So that's kind of the stuff I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay. I sometimes I use the angle too that sometimes conspiracies can actually be comforting.
Yeah.
Because it's their protection from randomness.
Right, like you were talking about. You're Neo in the Matrix. You're the one.
Yeah, it's actually for a lot of people a lot easier to accept that, like 9/11 was a vast conspiracy planned years in advance for a goal, not just a bunch of, fundamentalists who on a small budget did something like that.
Right.
Well, and Jameson starts talking about movies and stuff and books, but he eventually moves on to describing real world politics. So if you want to talk about totality's conspiracy, that's where MRAs get their everything.
Well, I think
or
survivalists. That's why they stockpile weapons.
Yeah, but why am I a white male educated in a Western country but living in a trailer? Why did I have everything handed to me and it's still not working out? And the fact that you can square certain elements of your history in mind, but not the entirety of it, and you don't know the entire academic stance, or you don't want to talk about your own self-psychology, that's a terrifying prospect, especially when it all waves towards you up front. So, no, feminist frequency did it to me. Let's go get her.
Right.
That's the nonsense there. It's like, you make yourself believe it because, boy, how comforting that is, and that it removes all my responsibility, or it removes me from even to ask the question if I have responsibility in my situation. And that's pretty much all of that stuff, from the Truther movement and pick your poison of craziness. Scientology. Mm-hmm. Why doesn't our religion make any damn sense? Shut up, kill the psychologist. All right, yeah, kill the psychologist. Speaking of real world conspiracy theories. That's where it's not that conspiracies don't exist, but there's also people who delude themselves into making conspiracies because it's ultimately more comforting than the alternative. And that's a key idea that explains Jameson's concept, because you live in a world where conspiracies are very real things that kill people, and you live in a world where people make it up just to be psychologically comforted and stumble into making their own conspiracies through doing so with the Gamergate shit. So Yeah, I mean and they both happen at the same time, and they don't negate each other, and they don't even really affect each other because
right. Because if you look at a real conspiracy, again, they're made by usually either massive institutions who use the power of apathy and indifference, like FIFA and DeBeers, or small groups of motivated individuals, like the CIA drug running, and they
just like
and
historical accidents, variables that free radical variables that just interact, and make weird movements of insanity. So like the red line thing, it's like no one got together and had a meeting, but it was more systematic than if you had a cabal of evil white supremacists. Like if the KKK had been managing that, it wouldn't have been as effective because obviously they're all inbred chinless yokels. But
the point is that the real conspiracies have limited goals. Even FIFA with its $1 billion thing, they do not like. If FIFA says someone in Montana must die, that person is not dead by nightfall. Like they are not, like the vampire lords of World of Darkness.
Yeah.
So when you look at, if you're a conspiracy theorist and you look at a real conspiracy, that's not enough. That's not power, even as powerful as FIFA or De Beers or whoever is. That's not powerful enough to explain, your fucked up situation. So you have to. The foes, I think, of a conspiracy theorist have to be both omnipotent and incompetent at the same time, because they are both so powerful that they control the world, but so incompetent that you alone can stand against them. So it's not very useful for a game, in other words. You need you need to model your conspiracies on the real world ones, like redlining or something like that. And in order to make the game interesting, because if you try to model a fake conspiracy theory, it's going to lead to a bad game, I think.
I mean, you don't want to make it too real because there's no headquarters to be on redlining. You have to change an entire cultural consciousness.
Well, that could be the Delta Green. That's the nihilistic thing.
Yeah, that's the nihilistic thing. But
but
if you want a game where your characters have any control, you do need one of those conspiracy. So, like in No Evil, that's kind of what I was trying to do with Manjapa, because Manjapa was very good at running his conspiracy.
Oh yes,
and he was very good at running his two angles, but he was still a speck of nothingness compared to a Titan, not to mention compared to an ETI.
And he wasn't even that powerful when it comes to the institutions of Ozma. Ozma sold him out in the end.
Yeah, because once Ozma knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It was a parallel state conspiracy. In that he was using the power of a state without its knowledge. And basically the ultimate thing you had to do is just let them know, but they're not exactly easy to contact. And so that's what I wanted to underline the horror of Eclipse Phase, because you did deal with Titan and Exurgent shit, but you also were dealing with Manjapa, and you were both hated and loathed and feared him. But the fact that you hate and loathe and fear him, and that in the grand scheme of things he is one iota above you in a vast, uncaring, incomprehensible universe, was seemed like the theme of the game.
And I think it's also good because of the resolution, because even when we stopped the conspiracy, it wasn't aha, everything's better now, the world is saved.
No,
it's not like the Matrix.
On.
Yeah, maybe he has backups.
Yeah,
maybe he was right. Maybe he was
right. Earth isn't suddenly safe now,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, and we all came away with just general scars too from it. That I like to say, when it ends the story, it made the stories more interesting for all of our characters. But bettering is up very much up for debate.
Right.
So
harder. But
I mean, it depends on what kind of game you want to run. I mean, you could run conspiracies even in a superhero or a fantasy game. In that case, I mean, actually, there's a whole genre of that conspiracies within fantasy. The swashbuckler genre often has to deal with who will be the rightful heir to the
new
throne.
Dread Pirate Roberts.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, take down Richelieu. In Three Musketeers. Or the sheriff is a conspiracy. I've co-opted the government.
Right.
In absentia, and Robin Hood is trying to stop.
And I have designs on the throne.
Yeah, and you can do stuff like that.
But that, again, it was a limited thing. The sheriff and Richelieu were not omnipotent or omniscient.
Yeah.
They could be very dangerous, but there were ways to work around them. So
they should stop fucking with guys with exceptional dex scores.
That's
kind of the swashbuckling genre in one line.
Don't fuck with a guy with a high dex score.
I looked it up. There's actually an old World of Darkness book called Project Twilight,
Yeah.
which is about the government agents in the world. This is like 3rd edition World of Darkness.
Well, it's old World of Darkness.
Yeah, and and I love, like, they're basically saying, like, yes, the vast conspiracies of the supernatural conspire away in their conspiracies. The only thing that may be more dangerous is the government conspiracies against their conspiracies. And then after all these books after book after book showing how humanity is really nothing in the face of all this, except when it is.
Yeah. It's almost like it was a huge game line with multiple writers who had differing viewpoints, and there wasn't strong editorial guidelines over it.
Weird.
Yeah. Maybe it was a conspiracy
of incompetence.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it got found out, but then they retconned it,
Except, there's never any evidence to these conspiracies.
Right. And
I think, and to make it, this conspiracy has to be discoverable.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. You can't make things too hard to figure out. That's a good point, because a lot of game masters, it has to be big secret. You have to give players clues. They have to know.
Yeah, no, it needs to be dropped in a way that makes it interesting and makes sure players want to continue along with it. If it becomes too obtuse, then
I think you can't do a Lost thing where every time they figure out one mystery, what's in the hatch. Okay, well, the hatch has this whole underground thing. And then, what are the numbers? Okay, well, the number, every time they answer one question, they added 5 new questions.
I know what point you're trying to make, and it's a point I agree with, but maybe don't use Lost to be the metaphor for that.
I'm saying not to do Lost.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
I'm saying don't be Lost.
That's the cautionary tale.
Okay,
yeah.
What I thought you were trying to say with Lost is that I think you need to stride a middle ground.
Yeah.
So I like the definition of maybe FIFA's not a conspiracy because we know everything and that's it. Maybe they're just douche. Maybe AIDS medicine guy. Not maybe. AIDS medicine guy is a douchebag.
Right.
It's not a conspiracy. So I think maybe a conspiracy should be defined by definition of being secret.
Yeah.
And I think the line you have to walk is knowing it absolutely, which means by definition, if we go by the definition, it's not a conspiracy anymore. And it also means that the conspiracy is not a source of horror anymore because there's no more unknown. It is a source that you plan against. So you need to either make that as late in the campaign as possible, or always never get there, at least in some respect, while still giving some sort of satisfactory conclusion. And the opposite is you don't know anything, or rather, you don't know anything and you don't care you don't know anything. So that's what I will shut up. I'm being dry and academic.
No. I mean, to look at an actual gaming product that's coming out actually this month. I actually interviewed Kenneth Hyde a little while ago about this. The Dracula dossier, which is a Night's Black Agents campaign about fucking Dracula. Just taking out Dracula because the British intelligence agency tried. The premise of the campaign is the MI5 tried to recruit Dracula as a secret agent. That didn't work out.
They tried to do a Helsing thing with him.
Yeah. And
3 times.
Yeah, 3 times. There's 3 eras, and you can actually do 4. You could actually there are options to run it as the original novel crew, like 1894. And then there's 1944, 1977, and 2011. And so what the thing is. So the players should early on figure out, what the fuck? These spies are dealing with vampires. What the fuck's going on? So that's early campaign. Then mid-campaign, they're like, Dracula's real. And they're trying to convert him. And they think, that's the conspiracy. But then I think the late campaign reveal is to find out what Dracula's secret agenda is. So
why is he been letting these spy organizations?
Yeah, what is he really up to? So that would be the ultimate reveal. So sometimes the conspiracy itself is being misled by others, or there is someone else manipulating them. I think going back to Operation Gladio, or a lot of these government things, why did the government want the CIA running drugs in LA? Perhaps they wanted to. They were the racist old guys in the government during the 60s and 70s were terrified of the Black Panthers and the civil rights movement, and they wanted to make those communities more vulnerable. So they hey, let's get them addicted to drugs. So that could be so even the CIA drug runners, we're just doing this to get money so we can finance secret wars. Maybe they were being used as tools for another secret agenda. Or if redlining was actually manipulated by someone who wanted these certain things to happen.
Layers upon layers.
Yeah, layers upon layers.
But you eventually have to finally get to the top somehow.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That, like, in the Dracula, it ends with Dracula's secret agenda, and then the player characters have to fucking take Dracula out or, get got. It's one or the
And
other.
we're gonna need a lot of harpoon guns and a lot of electricity.
I don't think there's enough harpoons in the world.
No,
for
he has
Dracula.
Dracula started out baseline has 50 aberrants, so he'll just I'll spend 10 points around. Your character's dead. Like, don't bother rolling. He attacks you 3 times. He does 20 damage.
You can't kill the Forger sniper.
That's the kind of thing in Gumshoe. If the game master wants your character dead, he's like, I spend 20 points. Your guy's dead.
Or maybe I'm a conspiracy. Like, I'm in all of your games, making it impossible to get through on the next campaign because I'm always becoming monsters and shit.
Don't be like the old World of Darkness. Don't be. Yeah.
Well, I like to hook vocabulary words or something. So let's say that it's not a conspiracy if you know everything.
Yeah.
It stops being a conspiracy. And so it's resolved, so it's not bad, but it's bad if it's early.
Yeah.
I think the other end of the spectrum is ataraxia. That's what I call it. So pre-Socratic philosopher Philo, with a P, was so skeptical, famously, of reality, because he had no way of empirically confirming it,
Right.
that he would often try to walk off cliffs, and his followers would have to keep him from doing so because he wasn't sure that there was a cliff really there. Now, this is probably an exaggeration, obviously, but when you're a Pyrrhic, you have to reach a point of ataraxia, which is the point where you realize you don't know, but you realize no more information is coming, and so you have to make peace with that. You have to go with your last best possible guess,
Right.
because your fifth senses can be fooled. And I think that's the death of a conspiracy horror game. When your characters reach ataraxia, they don't know, and you know what? They don't care. They're okay with not knowing anymore because it's so fucking obtuse. There are so many layers.
The Lost.
Yeah, the Lost.
Yeah.
Ataraxia. Season 4 or 5. I don't know, and I never will know. And I have to make peace with that.
Yeah,
and then I turn the TV off. That's the death knell for your conspiracy horror game because you've put so many layers. And so that's the perfect conspiracy problem. Like,
Right.
oh, well, it's conspiracies all the way down. Like, it just never stops. I will stop then.
Yeah,
Where you guys are like, hey, this coffee went up $1. Conspiracy.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think the thing is the victory or the success in a good conspiracy game is actually very close to that, and that's when the players get to a point where they realize they can never know, but that they care. Like,
Yeah.
like the idea, like in the Shoggoth Man thing.
But no, that's the thing. That's the thing about ataraxia. It's defined by no longer caring.
Right.
Like, if new information comes, you'll assimilate it and redo your worldview and move on, but you won't seek any more out because you realize you're never going to go to the bottom.
Right.
You're never going to beat your own senses. And ataraxia is accepting that and finding some sort of, like, almost stoic, even though he's pre-stoic, peace. And you don't, and that's Greek philosophy, but you don't want that in a horror game because
Right.
they don't want to play anymore because it's just like, oh, this isn't the castle the princess was in? Fuck you. I'm out. I don't want it anymore. I quit. We wasted our time. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, in the example conspiracy, that would be like the players found all the pharmaceutical guys, arrested them, killed them. They found all the Shoggoth hybrids, killed them, but did they? Like, it's the question mark. Like,
I think that's better than, like, they found all the Shoggoth guys, then they realized the Shoggoth guys were made by pharmacy guys, and then they realized the pharmacy guys were really cat's hands for the government, and then they realized the government is really controlled by aliens, and then you're just like, no.
And then the aliens are controlled by gods.
I think ambiguity isn't bad,
Right.
and it's
well, that's what I was saying. Ended
Yeah.
that, like, they think they got all the hybrids,
Yeah.
but some of the documents were burnt, so they never know if there's going to be one blood-sucking Shoggoth hybrid out there or not, so they're like,
and it's a good thing because that leaves them okay, like we need to stay alert.
yeah.
There might be some more.
So the ambiguity can be like a good note for the ending of a campaign.
Yeah.
But
I know it's kind of cliche to have the question mark, or is it? But, like, that's,
it's not like it's a standard thing, and it's a bold creative choice. Mass Effect should have made that choice. It would have been far superior to what we got. But the ataraxia ending is not an ending because no one cares to pursue it anymore. There is a mystery, and I don't give a shit about it. So I think what you need is what Gibson calls William Gibson, not any
Neuromancer Williams.
Yeah. Apophenia, he calls it in his modern pattern recognition, which is the sense of unease and uncertainty at false pattern recognition. You think you see things syncing up, but you can never truly know if it synced up entirely, and you're simultaneously concerned that you missed something, and you're simultaneously concerned that you're crazy and you're just making it all up in your head. And apophenia is great because the thing about ataraxia is that Firo never did try and probably walk off a cliff for those reasons. And the thing is, I can think about Descartes all I want, but I'm never going to have to cope with the fact that maybe what I think of as clothes are illusions. Maybe none of you are real. I don't have to cope with the reality of that because I always think that. Apophenia is I wake up one day and everyone laughs at me and points at my junk even though I think I'm wearing clothes. Or I wake up one day and no one else in the world exists. Apophenia is the risk of that happening, and that's what you want in a conspiracy game. You're pursuing truth. You need to pursue it because at any point you may hit an area where you're going off a false conception, and that's going to hurt really bad. There's always a consequence for not knowing, and so you need to know more. But even in that process, it is grueling. So you need that anxiety of that, or else it's not horror in the conspiracy game.
Yeah. There's a really good example from a movie, a Korean film, and I can't remember the exact title. This will have spoilers for the ending, but I think I have to mention it because it basically sums this up perfectly. I think the title of the film, it's something like The Memories of a Murder or Memories of a Killer. It's based on a true story about two detectives in rural South Korea. Have you seen this, Aaron?
Yeah, you eschew that to me.
Okay,
so, yeah.
And it's like in the 80s, and it's based on a true case, by the way. And so it's about women are being killed in rice fields as they're on their way to school or work or whatever. So there's no clues. There's very few clues. And these guys spend the entire movie it's very True Detective. It was made before True Detective, but they start drinking more. They have problems at home, and they're just doing everything they can to try and stop these killings and find the killer. And they don't. And they think they get the guy, and then they have this big dramatic confrontation with him, but it turns out he's not the guy. And so they just give up. And then they fast forward, and the final scene is just 20 years later, one of the detectives goes to the exact field where the first victim was found, and she was found in a drainage tunnel in this field, on the side of the road. And he's no longer a detective; he's like a delivery driver. So he's just on his way. He just stops and looks, and he sees a little girl looking down that tunnel, and he's just like, "What are you doing?" And she says, "Oh, well, this guy was here a little while ago, and he was looking down the tunnel, so I wanted to see what he was looking at." "Oh, really? And why did he say he was looking down there?" And he said, "Oh, he was trying to remember something he had done here a long time ago." And, "Do you know where he was? Do you remember where he looks?" And that's where it ends. It's 20 years later, and this killer had come back, and he's just, you can't even, his expression is just, oh, God. It's what the entire, and that's it, basically. You were so close, but so far away.
That one raw gut punch.
Or The Pledge.
Yeah.
Nicholson uses a kid as bait to catch a serial killer.
Yeah.
And then the serial killer dies in a traffic accident on the way to validate his life's hunt for him.
Yeah.
He dies just by hitting the wrong stretch of road, and Nicholson's life falls apart because he's arranged all these false relationships for this sole moment. They realize that is why they are there, and then he gets no payoff for that.
Wow.
But that's a fuck you ending that I'm not sure you want to give your gaming.
No, you want to have some enjoyment in it.
What I want to talk about apophenia is you have to keep them guessing about who is on their side. So the fact that your characters get screwed over by your first proxy in No Evil, but not the obviously tricky proxies or the obviously nuts proxies. So Tillman's the guy who betrays you, not Crazy Blind, and who tells you almost nothing and constantly lies to you, and not Pollyanna, who seems like she's trying to pass something over at you. But that's the fact. I didn't. That's not revealed until near the end of the campaign.
Yeah,
and it's very much about all right, who in the organization can I trust? Is he a member of Firewall? Is he a member of this? Is he a member of that? Are you on his side? Are you one of them? Are you one of the? And that's the kind of I guess we can't give too much away because it's not posted, but the Teeth of God thing with the animals. Am I going crazy?
Right. No, the foreshadowing is very...
Am I going crazy? Is this really part of it?
Yeah.
Is who's on the level? Like, or the fact that I didn't give you the briefing, I gave the briefing to one player, and I let the player give everyone else the briefing.
That's a good technique.
So you're all...
That'll be posted very soon,
So you're all role-playing... Like, even though you know what's going on, because that might piss you off otherwise, but you're all role-playing skepticism.
Yeah.
Like, that's the apophenia thing. Like, that's like I need to know this before it comes and bites me in the ass. And that's what you want, like, as Conspiracy being a horror game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know it's very much different in the tone from your movie or The Pledge, but if looking for just conspiracies, though, in a building mystery that could do that, Gravity Falls actually has done that great with their storytelling. Because it, especially everything, the way that the 2 seasons are going, it's all revolving around ultimately what the hell is Bill Cipher up to.
Well, I mean,
and no spoilers for Gravity Falls.
Yeah, no, we're not going to say
Sorry for the spoilers for The Pledge and Memories of Murder.
We're not going to spoil anything, but
they're 20-year-old films.
Yeah.
So
sorry.
I would say it is this character.
Yeah.
And
we'll put a spoiler warning in the comments.
Spoiler for 2 obscure movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think The Pledge is that obscure, but
yeah, it was a while ago.
Okay.
Gravity Falls, I think, it has a good general, like, it's a good mystery anyway, because it starts with one clue, like, what is the mystery of this book, and then it builds and builds.
Over into the town,
in
too.
In a logical, consistent way.
But it starts building up to where at the point, near the end of the first season, where, like, the Dipper is not certain who he can trust, and that's extending to his family, extending to his friends, extending to random townspeople, and the clues are kind of scattered everywhere.
Right. And conspiracies, we're talking about conspiracies in horror, the darkest kind of conspiracies, but you can have them in anything. You could do it like, there are probably, if you ran a high school or a school-based game, there would be conspiracies everywhere. Kids conspire the shit out of it.
No Soul Left Behind.
That was a lead-in.
Yeah.
And even more simple, like, basically every single sitcom or drama set in high school about, romantic triangles and stuff like that. A couple of friends conspire to get one girl kicked off the cheerleading squad. It can be very trivial.
And cross conspiracies.
Yeah.
Like, I hate plugging my own stuff, but I'm into but the devotees, like, everyone is conspiring against everyone else.
Yeah.
Simultaneously are Yojimbo, which is what I'm ripping off in Devotees.
You're not the only one.
Yeah, it's what we're all ripping off, really. But the idea that, like, you have these...
And Yojimbo ripped off a detective novel, so,
Yeah, exactly.
The cycle continues.
Yeah, exactly. So in conspiracies are a rich tapestry of a land of contrasts, as they would say in a bad school.
Say you're in conclusion.
Tapestry that
it's a conspiracy
that has different. Either has rich, wonderful symbolism sewn into it, or a cacophony of confusing patterns.
Yeah.
So
you want to make it satisfying for the player. So it's any kind of investigation game, but don't make them the World of Darkness. Don't make them a conspiracy.
There is no such thing as a perfect conspiracy.
Right. They all have flaws. They can all, and the whole point of a game is that the players can at least, they don't have to figure out everything out, but they should at least figure enough that they get a satisfying narrative out of it.
You need to end at near the peak of, for a game at least, not necessarily a movie, but you need to end near the peak of it not being a conspiracy, or with a little ambiguity left. You don't want to not end at all to the point where your conspiracy meter drops down to ataraxia. And you don't want to peak at not a conspiracy anymore because we know everything too early.
I think about it. The Pledge just sounds like it was a Call of Cthulhu game run by the same guy who ran the Charlie Chaplin incident. I think it was like John Crow or Tynes, and it's like just total poker face. The players go off on, and so the players do everything perfectly, and they get and they're luring the bad guy in, and he just
there's
rolls.
one roll behind the one roll behind the book, and there's a crit fail on the serial killer's drive check.
Yep, and it's like, nope, this whole campaign's a bust. Fuck you, because that's how that game master rolls. And
we're just stumbling across conspiracies can be fun too. Not even looking for them. Like the John Grisham movie, The Pelican Brief. Actually, I kind of enjoyed that because it's just a woman just hears about the murder of these 2 Supreme Court justices and just writes kind of her crazy theory, what could have happened, why, who did it, and then she turns out to be right, and then suddenly everyone's dying around her.
Right. A conspiracy to cover up another conspiracy.
Well, I mean, that's the way you get into those perfect conspiracies is you make your players the vector that the conspiracy couldn't anticipate.
Yeah.
Those Treadstone guys were pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
I mean, they planned for everything except one of their own men getting soap opera amnesia.
Yeah.
Like, they were very thorough.
Yeah.
And I don't think we can blame them for not coming up with that in the risk analyst report.
Yeah.
Like, maybe he'll get a brain injury that leaves all of his murder skills intact. Name, address, passports, money, guns. But he just forgets how much he loves killing and us.
Yeah.
That seems kind of a reach, Steve. Yeah. Let's leave that one
why
out.
Would he get why would we create a perfect killing machine that suddenly develops a grudge against us? that makes no sense. Highly improbable.
And so, like, the unpredictable vector is a long tradition in, like, movies. Like, I stumbled onto it. Like, I wasn't supposed to be there. They knew I wasn't supposed to be there, but I was there.
Yeah.
And so then you have that fish out of water versus the conspiracy kind of thing,
yeah.
which is pretty classic.
Cool. So when we get back, we'll have shout-outs and anecdotes. And we're back. So, for shoutouts, we should first talk about a movie we've all seen, which is a horror movie, a horror comedy from New Zealand, land of Peter Jackson. And this fine, very sophisticated movie is called Deathgasm. It is about heavy metal music literally summoning demons and causing havoc in a sleepy New Zealand town.
Mm-hmm.
I think it does it a little better than Todd in the Book of Pure Evil.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's gorier, which is A+.
It's nice, yeah.
Well, it's the concept. And also the concept is movie long. It's not show long.
Yeah, having to kind of maintain that for a series is a little bit difficult.
I don't know. I mean, Jason, Todd in the Book of Pure Evil did have Jason Mewes in it, so that was a bonus. Yeah. Well, he was really good as the old
as Jason Mewes.
Yeah, basically
as the old stoner janitor.
It's nice to see him getting work outside of a Kevin Smith film. All right, I'm rooting for the guy. Hope he doesn't die.
Glad he's not in jail.
Exactly.
Now, from what I understand, he's kind of more or less kind of stayed on the bandwagon. So.
But Deathgasm, it's high school. There's some D&D in it, and lots of ridiculous violence. And, of course, ridiculous metal.
It's totally brutal.
It's very totally brutal.
Oh, no. Well, to its benefit, a lot of practical effects. So.
Yes, because they probably couldn't afford too many digital ones.
True, but still.
Yeah, exactly. Next up, Caleb, you have a podcast, horror podcast.
Oh,
I've been listening to it, too, by the way. But
so, Limetown, the elevator pitch is basically, it is Serial meets...
Delta Green, basically.
Serial meets Delta Green, or Serial meets Marble Hornets, I guess.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, I mean, there's no Slender Man in it. Yeah, but
yeah. So the voice production, I think it waffles for me. So like, it either goes to like seamless. I'm listening to NPR, or okay, they're doing a pretty good job for this being a script they're reading.
Yeah.
But
the first episode,
when the voice acting works, holy shit, it works.
Yeah.
And they do a lot of really cool sound effects and stuff like that. So the basic premise is that there is this research group in Limetown. Is it Oklahoma?
Tennessee.
Limetown, Tennessee, that is an entire town dedicated to this research organization. And like all 30 people just disappear. There's some terrifying phone calls, and people go out there, and it's cordoned off for a few days, and then everyone is gone, and no one knows what happened. And it's 10 years later, and this investigative journalist is looking into it, and there are things that happen. I haven't listened to the third episode yet, but it just got released.
Oh, it did? Okay,
yeah. So
they have an irregular... it's only going to be 7 episodes, and they just released a third one now, which I didn't even check. But it's not on a set schedule.
There's a like micro podcast. It's like 2 minutes long. And then there's a third one that just got released.
Oh yeah, I hadn't even checked about the third one, but it's coming out. It doesn't have a set schedule. It's not like Night Vale. It's even less regular than RPPR. So
but with way more production value.
Well, yeah,
like so much more skill.
they actually have SAG actors doing this.
Yeah.
So it's a very ambitious and very cool thing. So check that out. And each episode's only like 30 minutes or less. So, it's not a huge time and commitment. Let's see here. Aaron, I guess you could talk about the video game we've been playing recently.
Yes, Gang Beasts. So this is an early access from Double Fine that Ross has recently picked up. And it is... I really want to say identify this as Fumblecore.
There are Fumblecore elements. It's a Fumblecore brawler. It's like Smash Brothers, but you're a little plastic.
I would almost say claymation figure is kind of the better term for it. It's like early access, so a little more on the CG, but the controls are you wander around like drunk mimes that you just kind of wobble to and fro, and the whole point of it is to usually ring out your opponent. And you can punch each other, but then get a tenuous grip on each other. And
if you tap for the left and right bumper, if you tap it, we'll punch. But if you hold the left or right bumper, you'll grab on to whatever your character's touching. And then you push Y on the controller or something else, and you'll lift your arms up. So the idea is to grab your opponent and then lift him over your head, and then just kind of let go to throw him over the edge.
But the rub in that is that your opponents can also equally grab onto you.
Yeah.
And because of that, we had a lot of issues. If you've watched the raillery video of us just hanging on with tenuous grips to each other,
trying to drag out the others with us.
Or if nothing else, because it is an early access. I know this video hasn't gone up, but the character I was playing, which do we call them moneybags or
I don't remember,
or corporate America or whatever. He had a top hat and a tie, but some of the times where I was holding it, the character model, since the tie could raise up, would glitch, and if this is a glitch, it would separate the tie from his body. So even though I had let go of the person I killed, I was just carrying this tie triumphantly around the arena.
It's the important thing. It's not winning.
It is.
And shoddy workmanship on that boardwalk, I tell you.
The levels do fall apart to
comedic effect.
Yeah, to comedic effect.
Yeah,
very good. So Tom, you talk about something we all did also on Sunday.
Yes, there's a place in Springfield called Clue Pursuit, which is basically apparently the locked mystery room thing, which is an actual thing.
Yeah, no, it's been starting. It's been for the last year or two.
It started largely in Japan.
But it's all over now. There are locked mystery rooms in a lot of big cities now. So.
And we did this on Sunday, where divide into groups of 5, and you are locked into a room where there's a mystery you have to solve, and you have to search the room for clues to find keys and codes to finally get out, and you have an hour to do it.
Yeah.
And you had the murder of Charles Mason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which we
had the same one.
Yeah, I was trying to make sure if we did. But yeah, we had a large group there, so we had to be split into 2 teams.
It was the John Monroe room.
Oh, the John Monroe, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We were split into 2 teams, and we ended up racing against each other. And luckily, the group that consisted of Ross, myself, Caleb, Sarah, and our new friend Nicholas.
Yes, Nicholas from Switzerland, an RPPR fan, came over, and we hung out with him over the weekend. Hello, Nicholas. Thank you for showing up.
Yes,
Nicholas
you were awesome.
Ross.
Yes.
He brought chocolate.
Our team won.
Yes.
we managed to get...
I just want to be really clear, by every measure, our team won.
Yes.
Yeah, largely due to Nicholas, by the way.
Yeah.
But we managed to get out with 4 minutes to spare, and although were the opponents, we were told that you guys had if you had about 30 seconds more, you would have been out at the door.
Yeah, pretty much. We were basically down to the final thing of getting the final box open.
Yeah.
So, but no, it was a lot of fun, and also a neat thing about this is that we were on the hardest level apparently.
Yeah.
So, and they do have clues that, in addition to the physical clues that you get around, the arbiters are monitoring you and will give you extra details.
It's pretty much necessary because some of the clues are very obtuse without their help.
Yeah. Although going back to Nicholas, though, it was the funniest thing that probably happened during that entire time. one of the clues involved moving a map onto a specific part of the wall and then pointing a light over on an X that you had to put on there. Nicholas is the only one that spotted it, and of course he's pointing it out, and we're off on our own tangents, and the buzzer goes off to alert us, and we look over it, and the sign says, "Listen to your friend in the red shirt."
Nicholas is a very smart fellow. I remember what was the game with the dice and the samurai?
He was doing probabilities on the fly.
Yeah, what was the game?
War. Yeah.
Age of War. Yeah, it's a dice rolling game where you have to a lot of it involves calculating probability. Like what kind of combination can I roll on these dice?
Oh wow!
They're six-sided, but they have different symbols on them, and you have to match the symbols to certain cards to get points. And so Nicholas would be like, "Oh, you have a blah 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 percent chance to roll this with this many dice." I'm like, "Oh, I'll take your word for it. Statistically, you were better doing this rather than that." Oh, okay. But I'm your opponent, so I didn't tell you.
He's a very smart man.
Yes,
and I was very smart to put him on my team, and my team won.
Well said.
Caleb.
The important thing is that Caleb won.
Yeah. Yes.
Because this is the month of October, Halloween month, I have some spooky music for people to listen to. Only one Vapor Trap album, which is a subgenre.
Are you really getting into it's not Vaporwave, it's Vapor Trap. Oh my
It's a subgenre. This is a free album.
I bet you listen to music on CDs too. You plebe.
No, there's cassettes. Do you see the cassette player?
I have started buying cassettes too. Because I am a monster. I can't even remember that.
Wait, did you get this from the Jade East?
No, that's a Vaporwave album I bought.
Okay, because
thicken
your glasses and tighten up your pants.
Yeah,
you have arrived.
The album's called Eternity by Cobalt Road. And it's actually it kind of reminds me of the Silent Hill 2 soundtrack. It's not the Pyramid Head is coming to kill you tracks, but more like you're wandering through the foggy town trying to figure out what the fuck you're doing there.
Just kind of that calming, unsettling.
Yeah, which is Vaporwave is very good at that. But also an album that Caleb likes too. John Carpenter's Lost Themes. John Carpenter's making music now. Well, he always has, but now he's releasing music just on his own.
Good job.
And it's an album, basically movie soundtrack to movies that don't exist. So they're John Carpenter type music, very 80s synth, kind of dark and ominous. And it's great stuff. It's great for writing late at night and that kind of thing. Tom, there's a show we've all watched, but I know you're a fan of it.
Yes, cartoon Moonbeam City, which is it is.
Speaking of the 80s,
so 80s. I mean,
painfully 80s.
The 80s. The supply of 80s.
It's the synthwave Archer, starring Rob Lowe, and
I love it. He's basically playing a cop who I love is he's actually completely incompetent at being a cop, but he acts like he's the best in the world.
Well, they keep him employed for reasons that don't make sense.
Although I have decided that my favorite character on that show is his boss, who is played by Elizabeth Banks, because every time she gets serious, no matter what room she is, no matter what the lighting is, they immediately have a shadow of Venetian blind go over her face.
It does. It is a great. Yeah, no, that is a great gag. Yeah, I do appreciate that gag.
I love that he has a room in his house where he drives his Lamborghini.
Yeah, because it's so 80s. Let's see here. Caleb, there's another podcast you were talking about that you're catching up on.
Oh yeah, I discovered The Bugle, which is Andy Salzman and John Oliver's podcast that they originally ran for the Times. Owned by Rupert Murdoch before they got sacked and then went it and did it themselves, which is very funny because right after that the phone hacking scandal happened, so they just tore into their former employer.
Nice.
So there are I think they're approaching their 4 century podcast, 400. Yeah.
Wow.
RPPR slackers.
Yeah, they are serious, and the news from 4 years ago has never been so funny and so enjoyable. I'm not even up to Romney securing the GOP primary yet.
Wow.
And I am laughing with tears running down my face as I drive to it every day. I've pretty much stopped listening to all my other podcasts And I'm just building up a big backlog of them as I just devour the bugle. So
Nice.
it is pretty good and pretty hilarious. It's like last week tonight, but
In audio form.
in audio form, and there's a backlog of 400 episodes.
Nice.
And they don't have to censor themselves as much.
Yeah.
They don't have to censor themselves at all on HBO.
Yeah. And two more things, finally. One, another vaporwave kind of thing. Fornox Void is a vaporwave artist and video artist, not just musician, and he released a 98-minute montage thing that you can get as a download and as a VHS tape. And I bought that VHS tape, and it is
Of course you
spooky.
did.
It is spooky, and Kale was angry when I was playing it.
Well, no, the biggest surprise...
God damn it, Ross! Oh, with the vaporwave.
Well, honestly, no. The biggest surprise is that...
You brought like 5 guests over to your house.
Yeah.
And the first thing you did was hook up a fucking VCR cassette player that you bought at a thrift store to play a vaporwave tape with creepy hooded men dancing across a staticky background.
Oh, no, you only got
That's like what you do for guests.
okay.
I think it was literally on a Friday night.
Yeah.
Like that's
That was Sunday, I think.
No, it was Sunday, but also I'd like to point out that because before everybody else showed up, it was just Ross, myself, and Sarah.
Yeah.
And he put it on, and we were listening to it.
There was
We'll watch
another tape that I showed right before then because I was just looking through. It was one of my brother's old tapes. He used to teach at a middle school in Japan, and it's like the yearbook VHS tape. And so I just put it in 2 minutes to make sure the VCR works. And it's like, oh, the singing, the students cleaning, like, oh, look, panning across the students. And then there's just this little Japanese boy who looks at the camera and flips it off. And like, oh, and like everyone's laughing. They left it in there. They clearly, whoever edited that didn't realize that. Or didn't give a shit. And so that was fun.
But no, I'd like to point out that, the only thing that we were saying about it before you guys showed up is that it was mostly calming images and
it
through
switched.
A store. It was a little bit weird, and if you look carefully, you could see the images of the Last Action Hero behind it, kind of.
Yeah. Because it was recorded over a VHS of The Last Action Heroes. Because they don't make new VHS tapes.
Yeah, but both Sarah and I were looking at this going, all right, when's the other shoe going to drop? And lo and behold, as soon as that door opened, scary Shadow Man.
Yeah. And finally, something a little lighter. Rutama, a Japanese role-playing game, tabletop role-playing game that's been translated to English, is now finally available. It's a Kickstarter that I backed last year. I today just got the limited edition faux leather version of it. It's got great art. It's basically, it's not about fighting monsters or anything. It's like you're going just on a journey. It's like, oh, your pilgrim's going to a religious shrine, or your merchant's trading. It's about taking a trip. And that's the premise of the game. So
yeah, I know I said Miyazaki before. Technically, it's like Kino's journey. That's the only thing I could probably.
It has a lot of influences. It's got great art and it looks very cool. So I look forward to running it at some point in the future. So finally, we have anecdotes, and we have so many to go from. Tom, would you like to explain the latest in the Air and Death
I would
category?
And it actually,
so he only gets to explain.
And it involves yet another geologist.
Yes.
Like the first one was shark punching.
Yeah, and then there was an NPC geologist who died, and that was Cascadia. That led to your flare gun death. So
yeah,
but that's not really
flare gun suicide.
I didn't think that was directly related to me, though.
Thrash punk band.
But
you were investigating his death. That led your.
In this one, like it's a
Anyways.
Delta Green game I ran. I hope Ross will post soon.
We'll see. We'll do.
But it's set in a mine. I'm not gonna. And the elevator had crashed to the bottom of the shaft. And Aaron,
Well, I thought it was stuck like halfway up or something.
Well, the emergency brake stopped it at like 800 feet. No, 600 feet.
Yeah.
Like below, from the top of the shaft, which would be the exit. So, Aaron decided he had the best climb in the group, so he said, "All right,
if I may interject for a second."
No.
You may not, but you will anyway.
Yes.
Yes, I will.
So proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, permission voice. Before we go into this, I didn't think this was completely unreasonable just because the way I had said this character, he was the resident geologist for this mining group. He was, that's like the guy had written that he was a spelunker and a climber, so he had a chance. And pretty much the only two options that we had for survival were to
underground river that we just found.
Yeah, that may have let out, but that's if you know
spooky.
Anything you know about spelunking anyway, that's a dangerous path to go.
It was
anyway.
spooky.
Spooky.
Yeah.
Or we were given another option to basically try to climb it up.
Yeah.
And since mine was high enough, and Ross was the second highest, because I think he had about a 50.
I had a 50.
And I had 60.
60 or 70.
60 or 70.
You had to make like 8 climbing checks in a row.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm into the Greeks. Can I try something?
Sure.
Let's try the Socratic method.
Yeah.
Okay. How many climbing checks did you have to make in a row, Aaron?
8.
So.
Oh, and
was anyone at the table capable of calculating probability in their head?
Bill was there.
Bill was calculating madly.
So Bill calculated this, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
There was a.
So what was the probability of success of making all the rolls you needed to make?
Now, it wasn't just you're making 8 climb checks in a row. If you failed a check, I could make a check at 50% to catch it.
Yeah, because we had backed it up just in case.
Bill calculated that as well.
Yes.
What was the percentage chance of you succeeding the 8 checks to get
I
to
remember.
the top?
Do you remember?
I want to say it was around 20 at most.
It was 19%.
19. Okay, see, I was close.
It was 2.6.
Well, that was just 8. No, it was actually high. Well, I thought it was higher with the.
No,
the fail.
this was just him. But I said, now if
It
you
was
fail,
very
if you
low.
fail a roll, since you're belaying with Ross,
Yeah.
Ross can
According to
make
Bill, who
Well-
talked to me,
Yeah.
it was 2.6.
Well, but afterward, it became 19.
So,
Okay,
after hearing that it was 2.6% chance, what did your character do?
All right, no, I got Caleb. No, but I said, but if he fails a roll, Ross could then make a roll to
No, I know.
catch him,
Yeah.
and that's when it went up a little bit.
Okay.
But not by much.
Yes.
So, and I flat out said, if you fail a roll and Ross fails that same roll, you just fall. And so, up Aaron goes. He makes 3 climb checks, gets up 150 feet,
Lethal.
fails the 4th one.
I'm up a bat for the first time.
And then Ross is up at bat. Nah.
And they're like, can I cut it before he pulls me down with
I said, I made you make a roll, and you did make that. So, you realize, he's going down. I don't have him safe up there. Cut rope.
Yeah.
And Aaron falls 150 feet right onto the elevator at the bottom and kills, and he dies.
And then I'm like, this
To
is
be
big.
honest,
Yeah.
more dignified than sharp punching.
True.
It was shark stabbing.
No,
really.
no.
We keep saying shark punching, but
absolutely.
he had a knife.
Yeah, I know, but shark punching has a better ring to it, so.
It was practically
Yeah.
call PETA.
But in any case, no.
We did goad him,
absolutely,
by
the
the way.
probability was not with me at all, even with the backup. However, character-wise, I honestly felt.
That this geologist was suicidal.
Well, no.
Foolhardy, you might say.
The way that I had played him, through the
Geologists
game,
fear
that
neither
he-
man nor death.
Well, no, but no. The reason I actually thought about it was that he already kind of had an attitude about this.
Just like your geologist in Shanghai.
No, that was
He
just.
had an attitude.
That was an attitude. That was.
Now let's go psychological here. What happened in your past involving a geologist to color your perception so specifically? Just like compulsive resistance to any authority.
Let's just say there's a history with the blood diamonds that we talked about previously.
Risk taking.
Wow.
Oh man.
But no, this was more that I was kind of playing him a little more arrogantly and thinking, you know what, I can do this. It's like I have the experience, and that's.
Sweet.
And honestly, and I'm still actually curious because, well, I'll not for any. Well, this may be our spoiler warning, but what would have happened, Tom, had I actually made it up?
It would have been over.
There.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
What was that time frame? That would have been like
That would have been like an hour in.
An hour.
I think that's about an hour and a half.
It was more like 90. It was like 90 minutes.
Yeah, 90 minutes is about the
half.
Aaron death. I mean, that was about shark punching too.
Time to Aaron.
Yeah.
No, but I realized some things I should probably change with the.
That's how you judge an RPPR game.
Okay,
my
so
God.
Video
Shanghai-
games are timed to crate, and you want the largest maximum number.
Yeah.
In RPPR, you want time to Aaron death, and you want that number as low as possible.
So we have that. Shanghai
The
is
Hex
about
Hollow is probably the
exactly. I was just going to mention Hex Hollow is about 90 minutes too, maybe a little under. So
Please say there's not a specific metric that can be used.
it's a range. It's not a specific figure because it's not exactly the same time. It's
but unlike Shanghai, this time I'm like, okay,
It's like Sigma.
okay, if both of you fail in the same roll, you just plummet. There's no catching yourself, none of that. It's just
No, we were doing cliffhanger basically.
Yeah, no.
So
but anyways, you die.
so, no, I still was like, you cut me, you bastard.
Of course, I didn't.
he didn't want to die either.
My choice was to not die or not die.
2.6.
Yeah,
from a professional accountant at the table in the moment.
Yeah, we have a couple other anecdotes too. In the current Delta Green game, there's actually a very tense situation where you forced Aaron to make sand checks to stay in a car.
Okay, well, they were at a site. Delta Green wanted them to do something.
Something bad.
Something criminal.
They did the criminal thing.
Yeah.
Then they wanted them to do a secondary criminal thing that the character that received the order was not willing to do. And I'm glad. I'd be terrified to play with someone who'd be okay with that. So it came time to leave, and the character that got the order was kind enough not to report the order to anybody.
Yeah.
But he did, since they weren't going to do the order, they did just have to leave a very bad situation by itself and hope that everyone involved in it okay. So the character made the lie to David's character. Foster made the lie to David's character, and David rolled human, and he rolled a critical success. So he not only realized that they were not supposed to do this, they were supposed to do something even worse, and they just decided not to do it. So he did not want to leave the situation. He wanted to stay and help people. So Faust and Aaron are like, well, we're gonna leave him. I'm like, so you're gonna leave the guy who witnessed all those murders you just committed, and
all those criminal things,
and is associated with you, and has been all day. You're just gonna leave him around to answer all the questions and give you up late. So basically, you just want to say like goodbye to your families before you go to prison for the rest of your life. Is that? And they're like, oh yeah, we can't really do that. Well, how do we do? And David's just like refusing to move, and so it just instantly goes PvP. Faust like just draws the gun on him. David's David, who would murder a child and has on multiple occasions to prove his points for characters, and they're both like having a Mexican standoff in the back of the car while Aaron has a trunk full of corpses, and it's just like, guys, come on, and like buildings are burning around
in the goddamn car.
And so, like most Delta Green,
and so they're role playing it. So I just start blasting Aaron with sand checks to like not peel out of there in a panic, and it was awesome.
But Tom and I were like, "Fuck this, let's get the fuck out."
Yeah, we go.
You instantly agreed. You're just like corpse in the trunk, slam.
No, but I had to get. Faust and I were okay with it.
Let's dump the body.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, we actually did the "Let's Dump the Body" song.
Oh my god. I really lived.
But
like
speaking of PvP, we actually got to play Dread this weekend. Ethan from Columbia came down and ran a game of Dread set on a moon base.
Sorry, I couldn't be there, Ethan.
I know.
No, it was a lot of
7
fun,
players.
though, so.
It was very chaotic, and he had PvP rules where basically, the premise of Dread is anytime you have to do something risky, you have to make a pull on a Jenga tower, and the Jenga tower stays until someone tips it over, in which case their character dies. And there were 2 cases of and in PvP, the character says, "I'm going to do something." Then the player says, "No, he doesn't succeed in that. I complicate his life by doing this." And then it's a Mexican standoff with Jenga, where you keep making pulls until someone backs down or
the tower falls,
and that person dies. And so the first one was Michelle and Bill, who got in it over. It was involving who could take a selfie on the moon. And that went for like a dozen pulls.
Oh yeah,
that was intense. Like that tower was just barely.
It was leaning is what it was doing.
And then the second one was which also involved Aaron and actually me. Yeah. My character was trying to frame Aaron for the murder he did.
Because
you murdered someone with a taser.
Yeah, I murdered.
You
someone
really
with a taser.
like tasers.
Well, no. The reason
you like tasers.
Tasers is fine, but actually, this was okay. For a reason because this is actually narratively for a reason.
No, yeah, you don't have to get into the reasons, but you killed a dude with a taser, and then my character's whole goal was to try and expose a corporation for doing bad things. So I was framing you in the sense that you killed the guy
on behalf of this corporation,
but on behalf of a different person. So. Yeah. I was framing the corporation using you, and we got into another ridiculous number of pulls.
Which
turned, you dropped your things.
Yeah, because what had happened was that it was on a tenuous balance, and I managed to get one centerpiece out, but it fell out of my hand. The tower did not collapse, but I lost this piece. So Ethan ruled that I lost the match. I didn't die, but I lost the match.
I was live streaming from the moon, accusing you of murder, and the public believed me.
But I think I still got out because my benefactors gave me a new identity.
Yeah, in case they didn't sell you out. But so there's been a lot of Aaron antics.
Antics.
Well, I mean, you were there. So.
Okay,
you were there in all 3 games, but you not necessarily the center of action. Is that fair? Yeah,
that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, no, because I thought honestly, because ours was funny, but honestly, the Bill Michelle fight, because especially
don't
when
get
it was
into
over.
detail. Yeah.
No, we won't spoil anything here. But when you find out what it was over, makes it 10 times.
I don't know
more
when I'll be able to
hilarious.
post the game. I don't know. We have a very packed schedule, but I might put it up for Patreon backers early.
Yeah,
have some special downloads. So yes, enjoy October, Halloween month. It's very spooky.
Fear the return of Spider-Girl.
Yes. Please back the Delta Green Kickstarter. Also take a look at Mystical Throne Entertainment. Remember the coupon code is RPPR October. You can get a full RPG for $1. Yes, one word. I'll have the code on the show notes. That ends up RPPR episode 121, Con-SCAR-acy. Thanks, Caleb. David would be proud.
He would.
Yay. This is Ross Payton.
This is Aaron Karsten.
Yeah.
This is Tom Church.
Vaporwave.
Sorry.